What are the Leafs going to do with Timothy Liljegren? Is he on the trade block? What's going on with Joseph Woll? Why is Corey Perry waving the white flag in Edmonton? And why could Gary Bettman be on his way to meet with junior hockey leaders this week? For the details on these stories and more, here's insider Darren Dreger with the early talk. Dregs, a couple of months after Liljegren signed his 2-year, $6 million deal, he's been a healthy scratch for the Leafs' first 3 games. Joseph Woll was supposed to be the Leafs' number 1, but he's hurt. Can you give us any updates on Woll first and then the Liljegren situation?
Yeah, if we start with the goaltending of the Toronto Maple Leafs, again, they feel like it's a position of luxury now. Best case scenario is Joseph Woll comes off injured reserve and he's ready to step back in the National Hockey League. But what we know, Gino, is that they are going to be conservative. They're going to take their time with Joe Woll. He did not practice with the Toronto Maple Leafs, but he was on the ice prior to. So again, they're simply going to take their time, and it's important to note that IR has to be a minimum of 7 days. So clearly Joe Woll is going to be longer than that, but that's fine. They've got Anthony Stolarz, who's proven early on that he is more than a capable backup goaltender for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And then they've got Dennis Hildeby, who also made a pretty brilliant NHL debut last week against the New Jersey Devils in New Jersey. So goaltending isn't a deep concern, even though we continue to watch Joe Woll literally on a day-by-day basis. Defensively, you're going to see some changes here. I believe that Timothy Liljegren will draw back into the lineup against Los Angeles Kings on Wednesday. Maybe this fuels more of the trade speculation around Timothy Liljegren, or maybe some of it fades. Look, the Maple Leafs like the fact that they've got depth in that position. Connor Timmins had a real good training camp, had a decent preseason. He fit the eye of new coach Craig Berube and the coaching staff, so they wanted to give him a look. But it's also important to get Liljegren on his game at the NHL level once again, and also to prove to everybody, including the Leafs organization, that they believe depth matters. So Timothy Liljegren should be on that third pairing with Simone Benoit tomorrow against LA.
Man, a lot going on right now. Elsewhere early, but a bit of a mess in Edmonton. 0-3, tied for the worst start in the league. As I say, Dregs, it's still really early, but frustration beginning to boil over, and some more obvious than other.
Well, I think it's more around the Edmonton Oilers as opposed to what's going on internally. I don't get the sense from management that they're pushing any panic buttons. Of course, it's a far from imperfect start at 0-3, but nobody actually believes that the Edmonton Oilers are going to remain on the carpet in the Pacific Division with the Western Conference. They're just too good, not that far removed from Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. But there are also some confused and dismayed, if you're an Oilers fan, as to how their blue line was dismantled. And some believe it is a primary focus of concern. I just don't think that management looks at it that way 3 games into the 82-game regular season schedule, Gino. I think that rather than point the finger at their 5, 6, 7 defense, they're looking at the larger group. Their top players have not performed up to their ability to this point in. But again, there's no sense of panic, but I think of an upgrade on defense, somebody like Kevin Shattenkirk who's out there. I mean, this guy's a 35-year-old right-shot defense. All he wants to do is chase a Stanley Cup again, Gino. He's not looking for a big payday, so it's a little bit confusing, maybe just because it's so early, why Stan Mullen wouldn't embrace an opportunity to bring in a veteran puck mover, a guy who can still retrieve pucks into the fold there to help that blue line.
Interesting moment involving Corey Perry.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, it's never dull around Corey Perry, especially in the offensive zone, and especially when it involves Corey Perry in the crease. I mean, he has been a habitual offender, and he probably feels at time, with due cause, that he's been targeted. But in this case, the NHL got it right. Even though I think most of us who saw this play and the disallowed goal saw the frustration there from Corey Perry, recognized that maybe this was a reputation call. That's the way it appeared. It didn't look like much in that game, Gino. But look, I ran this play by a couple of general managers and by the National Hockey League, and the feedback I got was this was a textbook call. Corey Perry was stationary in the crease, even though Vladar was trying to push him out when he made the puck deflection. So significant time in the crease? Yeah, in this case it was, even though Corey clearly didn't like it.
As you say, other guys might get away with it, but his reputation precedes him.
Not
Listen,
Perry.
a big junior hockey meeting coming up this week. So big that Gary Bettman is going to be there, Dregs?
Yeah, I don't know if it's fair to call it a headliner per se. It is the Canadian Hockey League, all three leagues meeting in Toronto, and that's the Ontario League, the Quebec Maritime League, and of course the Western Hockey League. And there's a lot going on, right? Of late, of course, there's been news from the NCAA, who recently tabled a ban on lifting restrictions on the CHL to a November vote. Now, it's expected that the NCAA eventually is going to lift that ban and implement it in time for August 1st of 2025. So I have no doubt that National Hockey League Commissioner Gary Bettman is going to be asked about that relationship. We know that the CHL and the NCAA and the USHL are the primary feeder systems to the National Hockey League. So I think he'll probably get peppered with some questions along those lines on Thursday.
That's the early talk with Darren Dreger. The full version of Insider Trading with Dregs, Pierre, and CJ is coming up later on SportsCenter.